meeting were sent to the board prior to the meeting. Are there any corrections or changes? To the board prior to the meeting, are there any? Whoa, variable lag. It's time we,
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
okay. Second, Rick, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The first order of business is 75 Croad Street, comprehensive permit, owners Clark Westcott, Plat 8, Lot 32. Request to amend the final plan decision with new language. Is Clark or his representative? Yeah.
Yes.
We did get your note relative to this, so. Briefly, yeah, if you would.
How's that?
That's good.
So there's just a language change in the decision that we kind of picked up on later that wasn't really in the sort of the purpose of the original decision. So we just wanted to clarify it. So it's listed now as 3 buildings, 4-bedroom or 4 2-bedroom owner occupied condominium housing units, including 1 affordable unit per building. Our goal would to be eliminate owner occupied. So it would say 4 2-bedroom condominium housing units, including 1 affordable unit per building. That would basically allow us as the developers to decide if, you know, economy blows up or we can't sell the units, to have the option to rent them, which is how I understand it from discussing with Allison. Still is, there's no restriction on that. It's just how it's worded. So it's really just to make us all feel more comfortable that if, you know, everything blows up and there's no way to sell them, that you're not going, people aren't looking at it going, well, you can't rent these because it says right here it's owner occupied. We understand that the affordable units will continue to be for sale because that's how our the decision is written, and we don't want to go down the road of changing that. So there's no, the affordable units will be unaffected. It would just basically change the language to clarify that it is possible to rent them, which is already the case.
Okay. Any questions or concerns?
What is to prevent an investor buying all 12 market rate units and renting them?
They would only be able to buy all 9.
All 9, excuse me, all 9 market rate units.
I guess nothing. Like if I decided I wanted to build it and rent all of them, I could. Which I think to the point, yeah. So that's not the goal, but it's more just to clarify and take some ambiguity out of it.
Yeah, it's a reasonable request, no impact on the low to moderate income housing. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Any other questions,
Yes.
concerns?
Why not have at least 1 unit owner occupied?
Yeah.
Per building.
That's the goal. There would be an affordable unit that will be owner occupied per building.
I'm talking about a standard unit.
Yeah, if everything goes well, that's what we're hoping for. So even this,
Okay.
Richard, the way we thought about it, so to be clear, it's not restricted now. It's just the wording of it that we want to clarify. We had some financiers ask about it and say, well, what happens if you can't sell them? Can you rent them? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, why does it say owner occupied then? So
Can we?
I understand.
At least 1 unit other than the affordable housing unit, be owner occupied.
I'd rather not.
I'd rather you did.
Why?
Why? Because then you have somebody there who has some responsibility. He's got an investment in the property. Otherwise, all you have is renters. And
Yeah.
so now who is the landlord? Is the landlord up in Boston? Or is he in New York or New Jersey?
Yeah, so there's a condo association that would be responsible for the property. So the owners of each, there would still be an
Yeah, but
owner
who
of each.
controls Condo association.
The owners,
It's
Yep.
the owner of the entire property.
the
So
owner,
if he's renting it all out,
Mhm.
He's an absentee landlord. Or could be.
Well, I think that he would be, under the scenario that you're proposing, theoretically, you could rent out all of them but
Mhm.
one, and then the owner of the condos as the renting would still be in the same scenario, because he would be controlling the unit except for the one unit.
Mhm.
And so I don't know that, because they're condominiums, they're gonna be independent structures.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that they could still work out either way. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah,
And there will be
it's
there
not-
will be an owner occupied unit restricted for, I don't know if I forget how long, deed restricted for, I think at least 30 years. So there will be an owner occupied unit in each building.
Okay. Again, it's really a matter of the language in this that makes it awkward, but the reality of it is that these people would be allowed to rent their condos by right. So we're clarifying that so that you don't have somebody looking at it saying owner occupied, that's a
Right.
problem.
There was language added clarifying that there would be short-term rentals allowed, so I think this version of the final, decision does add some clarifying language in here about housing tenure that. I think-
That these would not be Airbnbs.
Right,
That
that
was-
language was added in
Right,
as well.
the short term. Okay,
This, version of the final.
Blake, do you have a?
Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the language that outside of the low to moderate income housing units, there's no restriction on the ability to rent those units. Allison, do you have any input?
But, not the short-term rental.
Not that, yeah, on the short-term rentals,
That they're not-
annotating
it's not
that.
required. There's still condos that are, but they're not gonna limit, you're not gonna restrict the condominium owner from renting it if they need to or want to in the future for those market rate units.
Therefore, I make a motion to approve.
What's to keep the the low income housing unit to rent, sublease it?
That wouldn't be allowed. Those units are there would be a monitoring agent in place for the low and moderate income housing units. They have to be homeowners and to income eligible, families.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Abstain.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
The next matter is Settlers Green, major subdivision land development. It's a comprehensive permit. This is the preliminary phase. Owner is Last Ever Realty LLC, Plat 20, Lot 16, 159 and 164. This is a public hearing. The project description is a residential development including 12 single-family dwelling units, 2 4-story garden apartment buildings with 54 units in each one, 1 and 2 bedrooms. What we were looking at the last time we were in meeting was Paul Ryan representing the group will speak, but we did receive information from Mr. Landry on behalf of his applicant on Thursday. And to have this on the record, we'd like Mr. Landry or his representative to note what that new information was that was presented. Are you prepared to do that, Mr. Landry, or?
Sure.
Great. And then we would get,
Yeah, but before he does that, I object to the late exception. Material, other planning board require both providers to submit material not the day of the newspaper, but at least 7 to 10 days, and then just one feet on the property.
okay,
With respect to that, Mr. Chair, we have received from the town and provided to the town on the Thursday before the meeting, everything that's been submitted in this case by both sides. That's been.
Sir Landry, would you mind just speaking closer to the mic?
Yeah, the there have been a lot of documents that have been in response to things that have come up during the course of this project. And I know the practice here, at least for the last several months, has been that we both sides, whoever's submitting something, submits it at least by the Thursday before the meeting, and the updated packets go to the town on the Friday. And we've both complied with that, and that's been our experience in receiving things. Every letter that any abutter here has submitted gets to me on the Friday before the meeting, before which it was submitted. And that's not objectionable to us, but I think both sides have adhered to that standard while we've been here. It was made clear that you don't show up the night of the hearing and put anything up on the screen there. And I don't think anyone's tried to do that, but we have observed that. If you'd like putting notice for everybody next time, if there's another hearing date, we will comply with whatever you ask us to do. Now, what we provided on Thursday, it was nothing really earth shattering. There was an additional traffic analysis letter from Mr. Bryant. It's only a few pages. It was actually provided before the last meeting. It's dated July 23rd, and it was provided before the last meeting, but we submitted it again for good measure. At the last meeting, he had not yet received crash data from the police department. He received it subsequent to that, and before we were scheduled to be here on the 26th or 27th of July, he provided an updated report. He also did some additional traffic counts on Kickamuit Avenue and Buffalo, the Kickamuit Avenue and Buffalo Avenue intersection in both the AM and PM peak times, and has also provided some observations on pedestrian access to and from the proposed development, including access to the schools and issues associated with that. The next thing we provided was an updated fire flow evaluation letter from Zaid Engineering. The planning department advisory memo to the board for last month's meeting had a comment, I think, from the fire chief to the effect that the NFPA edition, the National Fire Protection Association Code edition, was said to be 2015, and the most recent edition was 2018. And he wanted some confirmation that Zaid has looked at the 2018 code, and that the conclusions in that letter remain the same even under the 2018 code. So we provided an updated letter that to that effect, that indicated that those conclusions hold under the 2018 NFPA code. The third thing we filed was a one-page document that Karen Beck will speak about, that has some cross sections that show the perspective, the sizes, relative sizes of the buildings and from Kickamuit Avenue and from the development itself, and certain distances, so that it's easier to get a sense of proportion and scale. It may be easier than looking at the site plans. The fourth thing was.
Excuse me a second.
Pardon me?
You talking about Kinnicut or Kickamuit?
Kinnicut.
Okay, you said Kickamuit.
No, I meant to say Kinnicut. Thank you.
Okay.
The next thing we were asked, it was indicated that at the earlier conferences on this matter, I think maybe the TRC, it was requested that the applicant update the financial pro forma for the project. That's a 2-page guesstimate of what the project costs will be and what the affordable rental rates are at this time, and what the maximum sale prices would be at this time, if the project were to proceed today. Now, that's a moving target because the only numbers that count are the ones that are in place when the project actually gets built. But we did update the information that had previously been provided to be current as of earlier this month. And then the last thing was a one-page email from the Coastal Resources Management Council expressing its position with respect to whether the CRMC or DEM has jurisdiction over this project at this time, and setting forth what steps would have to be followed if ever in the future that were to somehow change and the CRMC were to undertake to gain jurisdiction over the project. And indicating that the RIDEM approvals would be respected in all events, because it's clear that DEM had jurisdiction at the time they issued those approvals. So those are the only documents we've submitted that are relatively new.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll go back to where we were. Attorney Ryan, thank you, Mr. Landry. Now, my understanding, Mr. Ryan, is that you're working with Maria as well on this.
I'm gonna put that on the record. So between June and now, we have a split, Attorney Desitel and I have a split representation. I represent the Ferricks and their business, which overlaps with the association. Ms. Desitel represents the association now.
Okay.
So, the first person I'd like to call is one that, Attorney Landry referred to, and that's Mal Spalding, to do his presentation about the coastal impacts and the work he's done in Warren specifically. And then, we'll go from there.
Okay.
By the way, does everybody know who Professor Spalding is? No, all right.
I certainly do, but I'd if you could introduce.
Yeah, please introduce yourself and your background.
Boss, I'm in Warren.
We need a microphone there.
Friends.
Yeah, you're gonna need that. There you go.
No, I'm Malcolm Spalding, Professor Emeritus of Ocean Engineering. I served on the faculty for 40 years, Department Chair for 10. I was the founding director of the Northeast Regional Coastal Ocean Observing System. Served on the National Academy of Sciences Marine Board and Ocean Studies Board. I serve on the National Institute of Building Sciences panel to review when somebody says that the FEMA maps are not worthy and have a problem. So I've served on maps for 7 places around the country now. In the last decade, a little bit over a decade, I've been working on coastal flooding maps for the state of Rhode Island. So I'm the one that started Storm Tools, and I'm the one that continues to serve as a senior advisor to the next generation on Storm Tools. We have, just so you know, we have 4 RIC program, still funded, money still coming in, an amazing event. 2 of them are here in town. The third one is for inland flooding for the state of Rhode Island. So we're worried about the impact of enhanced rainfall on flooding. And that's not covered in the FEMA maps and not covered in existing maps. So we have a project working on that. In this particular activity, what happened is somebody from this group reached out to a guy named Nate Vinatiero. That's at the Coastal Institute. And he's a friend of mine and a colleague. And I've worked with him for a couple of decades now. And he asked me what I thought about this. And we had been involved in this. We were the one that did all the maps and were as a result of the shoreline retreat activity. So all of those maps you saw in the early or the mid 2015, 2016, 2017, we did all this. So he reached out to me and said, did I have any input on this? So I said, well, let me take a look. So that's what I did. I prepared this. This is the microphone.
Sit here, get here.
Do you mind if I sit down?
You can sit down here.
And then turn the mic.
There you go.
That's a school. Okay,
And please keep your voice up, even though it's amplified, so that the people in the back can hear you.
okay. So here's I'm gonna go through some slides just to give you a big picture, so you get a sense of what's going on.
Still can't hear, so turn the mic.
the
so
mic
it's
on?
pointing directly at your mouth,
Mic is on.
point it there, that's right. Sorry,
Closer in.
Give us a few lines from Fly Me to the Moon first.
Fly me to the moon. Okay. My wife says, shut up. Okay, so the first thing we do, of course, is start off with a location. And you know the location, so these are from the town's website. And shows the locations of all of the parcels. This is a parcel that belongs to the Water Resource Authority. And the question was, how far back from the coast does that go? So there's a little yardstick that measures it. And the question is, why? Why is that of interest? Well, it turns out that CRMC's regulations have 200 feet from the mean high water mark. So this shows you that the parcels of land here are within their jurisdiction or potential jurisdiction. So here's what it looks like with sea level rise. All right, and this is from Storm Tools, but you can get this from other locations. So you can see the sea level rise scenarios here. This is the blue line, right? And you can see where the yellow is. And that's sea level rise scenarios, and the lower left shows you the set offsets, right? So the yellow one is 1'3". Just for background, CRMC's rule currently has 6.47 feet of sea level rise projection by 2100. Here's a, for those of you who are really interested in it, here's a map of the topography. Shows the topography is very variable here. And you have sort of a center tongue here in the center of the image, and then low lying on both sides. And that will play out later. Here is the sea level rise from Storm Tools, and we've gone from 5, 7, and 10. So 10 turned out was the prior estimate in 2018. It was just under 10 feet, and they reduced it in 2022 to just under 7, so 6.5. Here's a overlay of what the development looks like, roughly to put it in context, and the location of the 2 apartment buildings, multi-story ones that are there. So you can get a sense of what that looks like. The CRMC has a requirement to do what's called a coastal hazard analysis app. And this is essentially the app. And without getting into a lot of details, what the app requires you to do is set the design life, determine what the sea level rise will be over that design life. Go ahead and take a look at what's called the SDE map, Storm Tools Design Elevation Maps, and also to look at CERI, Coastal Environmental Risk Index, which is the risk for structures to be damaged from storms. All right, and that app, what it does is it's part of the permitting process. And so somebody that applies for a permit has to complete the app. This essentially provides you a little sense of some of the ideas about what sea level rise values look like. This is from NOAA. This is the NOAA Sea Level Rise Viewer. And you can see in the lower right corner is the requirement that's set by CRMC for the state. Here, this will be a quiz later on. Just look at this and I talk about this, and the reason is that dashed blue line at the top is what's called the base flood elevation. So it's the one that's embedded in the regulations. So FEMA maps are given in terms of base flood elevation. It has two pieces to it. It has what's called swell, still water elevation. So that's the surge level. And on top of the surge are waves. So if you're in a closed environment, waves go down, surge, it goes up a little bit, right? So the surge amplifies as they go up to the bay because the bay narrows. And so waves go down in areas in the bay around here, and offshore, they go way up. And so the maps, essentially, what's called BFE maps, are given in, they have a combination of both things. So both surge and waves. Here are the BFE maps for this area that we're looking at. So I essentially have put a red circle around it so you can see what they are. And AE means it's in the flood zone, but it's a lower level. So it's VE would be the highest and AE is the next. All right, and two things are given there. One is the actual 100-year event and also 500-year. So the dotted lines or the dotted image is the 500-year. All right, so typically when you look at design of structures, you can take a look at both of those maps. And the reason is that one of them is embedded in the permitting system no matter where you go. And I would tell you that the issue is going forward, the other one is will be eventually embedded in the state permitting system. Hasn't happened yet, but it's in progress. So there's and this map available, right? So here is what's called a tidal marsh vulnerability analysis. This is the current version of it. So you can see the property here is in probably not in bad shape. A little bit of a tongue there in the southern lot, but not so large. Here it is for 5 feet of sea level rise. So you can see here, marsh area moving back, moving inland, obviously, and the topography would tell you why that's occurring. Here is a summary of all of that sort of stuff put together over the map. So the wetlands boundary is given a line in red. The 100-year map from FEMA is given in blue. And then the rest of the development is given there. And the apartment buildings from the drawing, the center has an elevation of 20.5
and the other one is 26.5. So those are elevations just from that graphic. All right. This thing is a bit of a hard to look at, but a lot of stuff there. The question is whether indeed this piece of property is within CRMC's jurisdiction or DEM's. All right, and the jurisdiction business is the one of they're in charge, we're in charge. And what they do is they reach out to one another. So they have a conversation with one another, and they have different ways of doing their business, right? So I would tell you that CRMC requires this coastal hazard app, the evaluation using storm tools flooding maps, and also projection of sea level rise. DEM, not so much. The regional development here was under DEM's overview. The applicant applied for a wetlands permit and went ahead and looked at the design, and DEM said, it looks okay to us. And the question was, what happened as a result of essentially the removal of the dam? So that process the dam has been failing for a long time. Process of removing it has just occurred. And the question is whether indeed there should be a transition between who has oversight of the property. So I reached out to CRMC since I've worked with them for the past decade and a half on flooding maps and asked them. And turns out that Save the Bay also did some measurements of salinity, essentially north of the Child Street. And that survey, I've inserted the data that I got from them. And you can see that in the upper right corner. And what you notice here, they have data from 2021 all the way up to present. Okay, so in 2021, the place was already salty. And it was because of partial failure of the dam. They removed the dam in 2024, 2025. And then what happened is the salinity has gone way up and it's consistent with the salinity further south. So I reached out to CRMC, whom I know them well, worked with them for many years, and asked them who was responsible for this. And they said, well, it's in transition. So Rydam was originally responsible and we should be now. So they applied for some funding to do that process. And they're supposed to be moving forward with that. So I reached out to them today and they said, we're moving forward with it and the work has not been initiated yet. Somebody would have to press them a little harder to get them to move a little faster. But as far as I know, they, one, have the funding to do it, and two, have agreed to do it and have the data that supports that transition. Here's what our Storm Tools design elevation maps look like. This is 100-year, and this is 3 feet of sea level rise, which is sort of typically what the numbers would be for this kind of development, right? Say projected life of 50 years or so. And also, these are FEMA firms maps right there using the Storm Tools tie system. Here's what the sea level rise projection looks like using Storm Tools. You see the same scenario, same impact along the coast, and the same thing around on the other side. This is Storm Tools 100-year no sea level rise, and this is what's called the total water depth. So this is the depth of flooding. So obviously, right, as you're close to the stream where the flow comes, you get flooding depths that are quite deep. And as you go up the topography, they decrease. But you can see here that about half of the lot that's proposed for development will be impacted by flooding, and that's no sea level rise. There's 3 feet. It's going to be a quiz later, and here's 5. So this is getting to the end. Anyway, you got the idea, right? And the other thing you should note is, see, you got flooding on the other side. So the problem is, it's not flooding on one side and simply moving back. You got flooding on the other side, and you've essentially got only one access road there. And there's 7. So this is what we would say is the upper bound, right? As I told you, 6.47 for 100 years. So I don't think that this design is 100-year, but if they did, that's what it looks like. So you can see if you go to the 7-foot and the 100-year, those apartment buildings have, one of them has disappeared and the other one is badly impacted. Okay, and then if you're a pessimist and you think the government has made another mistake in underestimating the sea level rise, this one was, we did this in 2018, which was the projection then. So that was 10 feet. So that tells you what it looks like if you make an error on the side of being conservative. So another thing that's happened is ASCE 7-22, American Society of Civil Engineers, and it's the flood design standards. And why those are important is that they are embedded in the International Building Code. And why that's important is that the International Building Code eventually goes down to the Building Commission in the state. And right this minute, the Building Commission is in the process of reviewing the building code for the state. And that new building code, they haven't adopted it yet. They've had a history of delaying the adoption. The Building Commission got a 0 score from FEMA for compliance with the International Building Code. So there's a little pressure building on them. In any case, this is the underlying document if you want to see the new building standards. And what I would tell you is that the new building standards have changed from once in 100 years to once in 500 years, and with a correction for sea level rise. So this business of all of these 100-year, all this sea level rise, the new ones are going to be 500 years and sea level rise. And the sea level rise will be that is adopted by the state. So CRMC. And here it is embedded in the code. And I've given you the list in case somebody wants to drill down on that. It turns out that we have a project from FEMA under the BRIC program, Building Resilience Program. That project got funded, and we thought BRIC got terminated. FEMA looks like it got terminated, almost. We have survived so far, and we're working on developing 500-year flooding maps for the state. And this, the first set of maps, I am showing you this example here. So this is 500-year and no sea level rise. You will also note, you can see what the BFE value is there. I would remind you that the building that we were looking at, one of the two, had an elevation of 20 feet, just a little over 20. So there, no sea level rise, and you're in a bit of trouble. Here, this is the same kind of map, but it shows you in terms of flooding depths. So same kind of scenario, deep at the outset and then increasingly shallow as the topography changes. This is the likely one that if you went ahead and said, let's take a look at what's going on today, and about mid-century, so about 50 years, about 3 feet. So you can see that that's 22.7 feet. All right. So here it all is, all put together. More numbers than you probably wanted to look at, but the FEMA map is 100-year, 12 feet, no sea level rise. The swell, by the way, is 11.3. So it means that the wave height is this. And it's obvious that it's small because not much place to have water generate or wind to blow over the water. I've then given you the FEMA 500-year map. So if nothing happens, but they adopt the FEMA 500-year map, it's just, the FEMA maps don't include waves. So it's just what's called still water elevation. So that number, it's called swell, and that's almost 18 feet. And then the SDE maps, I've given you the 100-year, 0, 3, and 5, and 500-year, 0 and 3. So you can see that if you're looking at 100-year and 3 feet, 500-year and 0, 500-year and 3, they're all, the good news is of the two buildings, the apartment buildings, one of them is still high enough. It's a 26.5. And the first one closest to the water, is in harm's way. This is what's called a coastal environmental risk index. So what it does is it tries to put the risk to structures and infrastructure in context. So we've developed this for the entire state. Here's a picture of that index. So green, well, let's start off with purple. Purple is, it's inundated. Without sea level rise, that ground is taken. And then what happened is we have moderate, high, and severe, extreme, right? So not surprisingly, as you go away from the coast and flooding depth gets less, damage goes down, right? So the good part about it is structures that are on the next to the green or at the moderate to low level. What happens is as you raise the sea level, you can see suddenly the extreme starts, you can see the tongue of that, and you can see the green and yellow move inland. And here's 7. So this would be the 2100-year design. That's what it looks like. And you can see that apartment building 1 to the west is impacted. And there's 10, as I said, if you're a pessimist and you believe they've made a serious mistake, this is what it is. This, by the way, would have been the map in 2018. So this was before the revision. As a completely different, if you just sort of back off and say, what would the national system say about this? Here's a picture of surge category for Hurricane 3. So Rhode Island, we are out of the 5 category. We're mainly out of the 4, and we're at the end of the 3. So this is what that area looks like for category 3. And this is from the National Hurricane Center. This is what 4 looks like. And as I said, we haven't seen a 4 ever. We've seen close, right? We were in 38, we were very close to that. Here, NOAA has a new product called a flood exposure map by risk category. And this is from their risk category. And what they do is they essentially list it and they have it a composite flood risk. And you could go online and dig into all the details. What you see then is the number of flood risks goes up. So yellow 1 and then on up. And you can go online, go to this map and take a look at the number of risks. And you can see what happened is the curve there looks, or the curves look just like our flood depths curves. Here's a statewide planning map going on. So they use a 100-year surge to determine the funds for flooding for the statewide planning. So you can see those are embedded in that process as well. Here is a little summary of what those lines look like. So FEMA 100, 12 to 13, FEMA 500, 17, 19, right? And then it's on the other side as well. So you see the two buildings. So the good news is that the buildings here in the lower part are in a good place. One of the two on the northern part is in harm's way. For those who love their cell phone, most of you don't have yours out, so that's a good sign. If you teach a class now, you have to get the kids to put their cell phone down. And I guess it's gone down to kindergarten now. Anyway. Yes, could everyone raise their cell phone just as an indicator of the use for this? Anyway, there's an online tool called the Siri app, and it's downloadable, it's free, and it covers the entire state. It has essentially maps for 100-year up to 10 feet of sea level rise and for various structure types. So if people want to take a look at that and kick the tires, I would tell you that the real estate agents either really love this or they really hate it. The builders really love it because they can essentially suggest some changes to the building and it'll save them some money in the long term. Anyway, so here's the summary. So CRMC jurisdictions, 200 feet. The land is within 200 feet. They have started the transition process. They are working on it as we speak. I reached out to the deputy director this morning and she told me that it's in progress. It hasn't happened. I don't know what the schedule is, but that's what's going on. Residential design standards, new maps coming up. I don't know when the building officials will adopt it, but it's in the queue. It's being considered. What they've been doing is they've been denying upgrades to building code for the past 7 years by using a cost-benefit analysis methodology. And this problem with this one is that the change in standard is so large. Now, you might wonder why is the change in standard so high? Why would they go from 100-year to 500-year in a change for direction? And the answer is that I think about 40% of the flood damage occurs outside the FEMA flood zones. And that's with no sea level rise at all. That's just straight up going on now. And so that's the motivation. So FEMA is also likely to adopt these. All right, I've given you the numbers in case you love the numbers about what that looks like. And I've given you the sea level rise projection. One other little tidbit is we are rolling out a wind damage profile method. So we've completed the initial maps. We've done them for the entire state. And what it does is it allows you to take a look. In addition, it turns out that the second form of damage in the state after flooding is number one in terms of loss. The second one for FEMA is in terms of wind. And of course, the reason is we're close to the ocean. The furthest part of the state is only 60 miles away from the ocean. And so wind speeds are quite high, and they're also high because of Narragansett Bay as well. Anyway, we've generated the maps. They're based on what's called land use and land cover. So here's the land use, land cover for this piece of property. And what you'll note is, according to this state, it's agricultural land. Now, on one hand, that's quite good, tree damage less. On the other hand, wind speed's higher. And the wind speeds are significantly higher in areas where there's just open fields. So that's the worst situation. The best, strangely enough, of course, is in the middle of communities when the roughness is really high, or in a forest. Anyway, this area, you can see it's right next to an area that's developed in the worst category possible. So here's what the wind speed looked like. This is the gust speed according to the ASCE design standards. So for here, it's 120 miles per hour.
Can I stop you there?
Yep.
You know, I think more important to me as I receive all this information was the ability, the tillability or tillable of that land for farmland. Are you in the capacity to speak to this property's ability to be farmland and the type of, no, you're not? Okay.
No.
All right, that's fine.
No.
You can continue that.
No, the reason we started on this was that as we rolled out the storm tools maps, the next question we got asked was wind damage.
Okay.
And the reason is that it's number 2 in terms of loss category. And we've done it for the entire state. And I was just giving you, this is what the map looks like for the entire state to the right. And you can see the red ones are dense areas, right? And then what happened is the green or forested areas, and it turns out that the open field there has the highest damage category in the state. And so it's essentially in what's called damage category 2. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions you have.
Is this applied by insurance companies at this point?
No, this hasn't, I'm just, this is gonna show up eventually. It's not, we finished it at URI. We've kicked the tires on it several times. We've been outside the state to get input on it. What's gonna happen is we've introduced it to CRMC and we've introduced it to DEM via the STAB, Science and Technology Advisory Board, to EC4. We've introduced it to them. It's going to eventually, I think, you will see it show up in the permitting process. But what it does is it gives you a consistent methodology to look at that. It also distinguishes between the roof types. And it turned out the roof types make a really big difference. Gable versus hip roofs make a really big difference in the wind damage.
Any questions?
Just to clarify for some people who may have missed it, 100-year refers to a 1% risk annually of flood hazard, and 500-year equates to a 0.5%, or
Yes.
1.2%.
Yeah, 0.2.
Okay, so, and that said, 100-year storms in fact occur far frequently than once every 100 years, as that we've observed recently.
The problem, of course, is we are in a situation where that business about doing the return period analysis is migrating.
Right.
And the reason is that the 100-year storm is moving to be more frequent.
Okay.
The data, way they do the return period analysis is that you take the historical data and there's not enough new data unless you do model simulations to look at that, but that's what's gonna happen. So the other way to think about it is the reason that ASC has gone to the 500 year is that they know that the damage states are going up, right? In other words, it's going down. And to compensate for that, what they do is they take the existing methodology and drive it up.
So a lot of what drives these decisions and it seems to me regulations, it seems to me, is the money. Do you have any information on where lenders are on these standards? Whether lenders are beginning to look at saying it's not sufficient to meet a 100-year flood standard, we now are looking to meet 500-year flood standards.
I've been working on this, as I said, since 2014, when the state challenged the FEMA maps for Washington County. And after developing the maps, question was, who's going to use this stuff? And how do they get access to it? All right, so the usage said, all right, so access, we put it on the computer, we make storm tools as a subsection, and we link that into the permitting system, yes. All right, question one is, how do you get the average citizen who may or may not have a laptop?
Right.
And I said, well, the question is, let's see, if you wanted to sort of make them connect to something, what device would you use? And the answer came up, a cell phone, mobile phone. So that was the genesis of the mobile phone. We essentially did some training sessions when we introduced this. So we reached out to community training sessions, so we did that. We reached out to the insurance company and we reached out to the builders.
Okay.
And the insurance company said, not so interested in talking to you.
Okay.
Okay. The building community, I said, what about you? And it turned out that the building association said, not so interested. It turned out that a couple of high-end builders reached out and said, we love it.
Well, and I would also imagine that lenders who are taking out basically a 30-year asset on something is going to know what's going to happen to the asset over 30 years.
Yep. So the deal is as I said, I reached out to the building community, I reached out to the insurance community, and I reached out to the builders. And generally, they were not interested in me presenting to their groups. The only ones were some of the high-end builders. And I would tell you, a couple of the high-end builders essentially had somebody that bought a lot next to the ocean. They're ready to build a house and essentially would have an architect there. They would walk out and they would say, here, build a house here. Here's where you are relative to the flood zone. So you won't get it, right?
Except that doesn't imply what we've got going here.
No.
If the developer goes forward with this project and then whoever is building it goes for financing and the lender says, we're going to follow the new ASC standards.
Okay.
That would have them come back to us. And maybe this is a question for Mr. DeSisto. That would have them come back to us because the building permits changing from what the plan is from say in 19.5 foot or 20.5 foot base flood elevation for the real building to maybe 25 feet. Would that trigger a whole new process with us or just for that one part?
That'd be a whole new process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Thank you.
Before Professor Spaulding goes, I have one procedural question. This is an excellent presentation. but the town is required to create a record in case there's an appeal in this case. So how do we get this presentation into record form so it can be attached to the transcript?
I don't know how you do that business. I've sent this in to, the group.
We received it.
Yeah, we received
We
it.
received
Have
this
a
slide deck.
copy?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it a part of the record? Excuse me,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so the thing I changed, by the way, here was I changed the date of the presentation. And the other thing I changed was the follow-up conversation I had with CRMC this morning.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Chair, is it possible for me to ask the witness a couple of questions? either
Sure.
Directly or through the chair?
Yeah, you can come up and.
I'll be brief, Professor Spalding. I'm going to start with one of the last things that you said. I think it was the last flourish. It said you were describing a progression of your work over the last 2000 since 2004 from mapping, and then you said eventually you will see this show up in the permitting process. All saying that? Eventually, you'll see this show up in the permitting process?
Yes?
Okay, and that's the phase that by the way, you're seeking to sell your services and mapping to the various agencies you've reached out to on this project, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how long have you been working on flood-related issues and sea level rise?
It depends if you just focus on the time that I have been doing flood maps for the state of Rhode Island. That's, I started in 2014.
Okay.
I've been involved in flood mapping, since 1974.
And so at no time from 1974 to 2025 has what you've just described and the recommendations you're making made its way into the permitting process, either at the state level in Rhode Island or at the CRMC level or at the building code level or at the zoning ordinance level in the town of the planning board level at the town of Warren.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
It's, the storm tools are embedded in the CRMC permitting process.
Yeah.
And I gave you an example at the beginning.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. But if I'm
Yes?
understanding what you're saying correctly, and I'm not going to argue with you, what you're saying is that, and what I understand to be the case, is that there is a tool on the CRMC website in which anybody can plug in certain data and get a sense, according to that tool, of how the water level is going to rise on a particular piece of property, correct?
Right.
But what has never happened since the 70s or since 2014 is that CRMC or DEM have actually developed regulations that are based on 500-year floodplain or all of these other regulatory changes that you're advocating for at this time, correct?
What happened is the way the CHA, the Coastal Hazard Act works, is that you're required as part of the permitting process to fill it out, to complete it. And what it is, it's a risk assessment tool. And it gives you guidance. Now, what you can do is you can say, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna take this guidance. And what they do then is there's essentially an amendment to the deed of your property that says that you have essentially waived, you have known what your risk is, and you have waived it.
So that's pretty much what the tool can do. It may affect the way whoever's making that calculation behaves. What
Yes.
you're advocating has not made its way into the permitting process, correct?
No, it is. You can't essentially apply for a permit from CRMC without completing the job.
Okay, so you're not saying we should fill out the formula in the calculation that in fact, when this project goes to CRMC and when CRMC becomes relevant to the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act at the final stage, we'll have to produce permits and we'll have to fill out that formula. So I'm not arguing with you that they make you fill it out. What I'm suggesting is that the recommendation you're making to this board that this property shouldn't be allowed to be developed, and I assume nothing anywhere near it should be allowed to be developed because eventually, in your opinion, it will be subject to flood impacts to a significant degree. That is not part of the state or local permitting code or the building code.
Now, what I'm suggesting to you is, okay, given the big picture, the town of Warren, guess who's at the highest flood risk in the entire state of Rhode Island? Guess who's spending the most resources related to their flood risk? Guess who's talking about essentially moving away, retreating from the coastline? Worst situation of all of the communities in the state, right? Highest loss. Essentially really difficult for people to afford those things. And all I'm suggesting to you is, we've been working on this for a long time. Here's what we see. Here's the benefit of the research that we're doing.
No, I
So-
understand.
So the 500-year maps, I would not have started the 500-year maps. I'm a member of ASCE. I'm on the coastal zone committee for the country. And they reach out and said, what do you think? I said, okay, I get it, I see. And the question was, why? Why don't you like the 100-year maps and correct sea level rise? They said it doesn't move the risk. So I serve on the FEMA panels I've done 7 around the country. Same issue. Same problem. So all I'm telling you is, these are the things that are happening. And Rhode Island, if you were me, I would press the building commission hard to adopt the International Building Code. They haven't done it.
I understand. But this town has taken some of in fact, I think they're a leader in this, has taken some of your recommendations and actually adopted and put in its comprehensive plan and in its zoning ordinance, a future planning device for the Market Street area as part of the
Right.
initiative Market to Metacom, correct?
Yes.
And that was part of the comprehensive plan. It's part of the zoning. It's a program that's been adopted that has certain advantages for landowners in those areas. And the effort is to try to get people to move from those areas. Now, to your knowledge, has anything like that been done with respect to this particular property or the neighborhood that it sits in?
No, I've, as I said, when I looked at this thing and I said, why in the world is, they're not sort of thinking about this, and the thing that occurred to me was flooding. And you look at the FEMA flood map, it's flooded. You look at the sea level rise maps, you get flooded. You look at the NOAA risk maps for properties, you get flooding. You think, okay, there's a heads up to you. No matter what somebody else tells you, you look at 5 different maps and everybody says it's gonna get flooded. You think twice about it, right? So move the building back a little. The strategy, raise the building. So you have a bunch of options.
Well, that's my last question. You've spoken very eloquently about the different ways that the flooding will impact and how regulation should change. One of the features of FEMA regulation in particular is that it requires some design components where and when FEMA applies as to how high your first floor elevation could be. And it's not managed necessarily by prohibiting development on a piece of property. It is sometimes managed by complying with FEMA and its mapping in making sure that you've taken the building or structure sufficiently away from the flood risk. Is that correct?
Yes, and what happened is, depending on the state you're in some states, what they do is they have an offset. So the rule of thumb on an offset is, 2 feet if you're not worried about it getting something wet, and 3 feet if you're starting to get something wet. So you take something, and it's a structure, you go, okay, let's see, where, about there. And get embedded, not embedded. The problem with using the FEMA maps is, the FEMA maps were created for flood insurance. They weren't created as part of a building code process. And they worked fine for many years, and the reason was they essentially had flooding, didn't have to worry about sea level rise before, and okay, we're good. What then happened, of course, is people started using them to project into the future. All right, well, if you projected into the 50 years ago, you projected 50 years in the future, you would have said, oh, sea level rise, are you kidding me? Nothing. And so you wouldn't do anything. So the trouble is that the underlying principle of using FEMA or flood maps is that they don't give you the impact of climate change. So some way you gotta figure that out.
Understood, but we don't know how the state of Rhode Island or any of its municipalities or the Building Code Commission will sort those issues out that you described, correct?
What happened is the Rhode Island Building Commission just received some money from FEMA from an extension of the BRIC program. And they are supposed to be in the process of reviewing the building code for the state. And as I told you before, the state right now gets a 0 score on compliance from FEMA. So,
We're gonna need to wrap this up. We're out of here by 9 o'clock today. And I appreciate the presentation and your, rebuttal.
Yeah, one more question. So it's a one, yes or no answer.
Let it go.
Yeah.
You did not take into consideration the design for the regrading of the site that would raise the site's level, correct?
no, what happened is I took it from the drawings to the site for the center of one of the apartment buildings. One was 21.5 feet and the other was 26 or thereabouts. And now that's in the center. So that's the grade elevation, I assume, in the center of it. What they did is they leveled it out, right?
Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So as Mr. DeSisto knows, it's my week for criticizing state agencies. I was one of the people that wrote the 2016 Wetlands Act. And the agencies promised Senator Sosnowski that they could get their regulations done 2016 in a year, at the most 2 years. Those regulations went into effect on January 1st, 2024. So my position, which is probably going to wind up in a forum not here, is that the CRMC cannot duck jurisdiction because they don't have the funding, or they didn't get the funding last year, or they didn't get the funding 3 years ago. When I was Save the Bay's outhouse attorney for 28 years, we sued EPA, DEM, CRMC over and over again. But now, because of the standing cases, Save the Bay lacks standing to bring these lawsuits. So it's required that a government entity or an abutter bring the cases and try to force the jurisdiction of the CRMC. That's it for that one. Now, in the master plan, we submitted a report, which is part of the record, of Michael Cassidy. And I resubmitted it last month. And I have extra copies for everybody.
We received it. We did receive that.
one of the things I'd suggest that Michael brought up among the many zoning issues is the fact that general planning for affordable housing picks locuses that are near public transportation and shopping, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the legislature, in its infinite wisdom this year, actually reduced the parking requirement for affordable housing. So they're required to have less cars on an affordable housing project. Well, this project is not near public transportation. And in fact, it's not near stores, et cetera, except for, I think, the testimony was a 1.5 mile walk. My suggestion to the board is, because of the weakness of the traffic report you got from the applicant and some of the other evidence, that being it's not near public transportation, what are the real traffic impacts going to be? One day in the summer or 1 week in the summer does not a good traffic study make. And lastly, not lastly, but Ms. Desatel will now put on her expert witness. And then I suggest if we're near 9 o'clock, that we defer the final arguments for the next meeting, but that's up to the board.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Attorney Marissa Desatel, and as Attorney Ryan indicated, I represent the group known as the Warren Citizens for Appropriate Development. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the environmental risks and liabilities associated with this project as proposed. The group has hired an expert to discuss the impacts anticipated to groundwater, surface water, stormwater, and public health, safety, and the environment. I'm happy to dive right in, but I also have just a short written statement that I wouldn't mind delivering. Thank you. As I indicated, our expert, Elisa Richardson, is a licensed professional engineer with more than 35 years of experience in stormwater, hydrology, and environmental permitting. Ms. Richardson currently serves as administrator of the environmental division at the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Now, she's speaking to you here tonight, not in her role as an employee of Rhode Island DOT, but as a private consultant. Ms. Richardson provides testimony here tonight in her capacity as also a former Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management employee. She is a nationally recognized author on water quality and groundwater flow policy. Her testimony will explain why the Settlers Green proposal poses unacceptable risks to the environment, as I said, public health and safety. From an environmental standpoint, the project fails outright. The site lies in the Kickamuit Reservoir Watershed Overlay District, which caps impervious cover at 15%. Yet the applicant proposes vast impervious surfaces and underground stormwater chambers that the town will not and cannot maintain. Long-term operations and maintenance of stormwater treatment infrastructure has proven a failure in other municipalities, including Middletown. Ms. Richardson will explain how the stormwater design fails to provide a required 3-foot separation from the seasonal high water table, undermining pollutant removal and risking contamination. She will also address the impacts of the Kickamuit Dam removal, which transformed the system into a brackish estuary. The applicant's wetland delineations are outdated and do not consider sea level rise or storm surge. In short, Settlers Green is overbuilt, unsafe, environmentally unsound, and legally deficient. Ms. Richardson will walk you through the technical reasons why, but I respectfully urge you to deny this application. With that being said, I would like to invite our expert, Ms. Elisa Richardson, up to the podium with me.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you for having me here. Yes.
So we decided, okay, that we weren't gonna go through that expert testimony.
My practice to advise the boards I represent, not to qualify anybody as an expert witness. What that means is they can give opinion testimony. This witness can clearly give opinion testimony. You just gotta give a weight. You see what her credentials are. I'm sure that, Ms. Desautels will go through those, but, I do not, advise the boards to qualify people as experts, and you have to get into what their experts are. So just whatever she says, she can give her opinions. And then, you've got to weigh how much weight you're going to give it. Of course, I'm an expert on weight myself. We won't mention that one.
Are we gonna go into an Ozempic commercial?
Obviously, you can tell I'm not one of the patients.
Please.
Is the witness going to be sworn in?
Yes. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Elisa Richardson, ALISA RICHARDSON.
Ms. Richardson, are you a licensed professional engineer in Rhode Island?
Yes, I am.
How many years of experience do you have in that area?
I received my PE in 1995, so I don't know, 30 years now. Yeah. I work for the Department of Transportation. I'm the environmental administrator, run the environmental program there for DOT.
And how long held that position?
Last 4 years.
To the
Prior to the Department of Transportation, I worked at the Department of Environmental Management. I led the stormwater engineering program. I was supervisor of that. So all of the wetland stormwater permits eventually went, through me. Yeah.
Have you previously been qualified as an expert in water quality?
Yes.
And have you previously been qualified as an expert with respect to stormwater?
Yes.
And how about with respect to environmental permitting?
Yes.
Can you tell us in what venues you've been qualified in those areas?
I think federal court, other towns, planning board meetings,
How about Superior Court?
Superior Court, that, yep, yes.
With the understanding that your legal counsel is saying that sort of opinion can be given, but not necessarily qualified as such, I would still like to make the request to preserve my rights.
That's fine.
Thank you. Ms. Richardson, have you reviewed the settlers green plans?
Yes, I have.
And what did you observe about the stormwater design?
Yeah, well, one of the first things that just jumped out at me is that it was probably one of the most impervious, highly impervious developments I had seen. I've reviewed hundreds of site development plans, and it's just something that just pops out like, wow, that is really packed in tight. So what did they do to really, kind of piece everything and put it all in there and put it together? So as I was looking at it, I found that there were maybe a couple of things that, I don't know, as a supervisor, I wouldn't have allowed and actually are against the regulations.
Stop there. Say as a supervisor and regulations, what are you talking about?
Oh, in my capacity when I was the supervisor of the engineering group that would review these permit applications for Department of Environmental Management. Yeah, when I was in that capacity, I would have questioned one of the engineers on this one. But apparently, I don't know, they let it slide in the regs. It states that you have to have at least a 3-foot separation. between the bottom, the top of the filter to the estimated seasonal high groundwater table. And in some cases, this, the filter, sand filter area number one, actually the high water table goes right through the middle of the filter. There is no separation, maybe a foot, half a foot, should be 3. The media actually filters and takes care of the pollutants. So it'd be like you're putting your septic system in the high water table. Like it's not recommended. And also you just don't get the filtration. You don't get the cleanliness. And so everything that the regulations were built upon and all of the assumptions that they were built upon just kind of fall away.
Segueing,
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you could tell us the risks to groundwater and private wells from the design that you just talked about and the seasonal high water table issue.
Well, sure. I mean, if you are putting pollutants in at a rate, particularly bacteria in at a rate, which stormwater contains bacteria, particularly who knows what kind of pets and pet waste and other things are going to be around in a high density capacity like this. You put that into the ground without allowing it to basically be filtered out and put it right into the groundwater table, that could impact people's wells. Yeah.
Maintenance of stormwater infrastructure, like what's being proposed here.
Yeah, so I did not get a hold of, I don't know if there's a maintenance agreement here. That is another thing that I would have required as part of this. So you have a developer that develops this property and then hands it off to some other entity. There needs to be a legal document in accordance with the regulations, a maintenance liability. There needs to be a maintenance document that states that the next entity is going to take over, especially if the town's not going to take care of it, is going to take over the maintenance of all of the stormwater facilities. And that's not just required in the stormwater regs, but also in your MS4 programs, part of your standard multi-sector general permit for stormwater.
And what are the requirements for this long-term stormwater infrastructure operations and maintenance? Like, what is that basically?
Yeah, so so a lot of times what we would do is we would there would be an HOA or somebody would form, or you put it in the deeds and the land evidence records that the new owner is to take on that liability. Because if the new owner does not do that, and that's not in the regs, it sits on the town. Becomes the town's responsibility, whether you say you're going to make it happen or not. So, and if the land developer just disappears as a company and the next one takes over and it's not in the land evidence records, then that company just disappears. You have nobody to go after. So you really need to make sure that as a town, you make sure that liability is properly transferred over to the new owners, to the new entity, so that there's the maintenance continues.
You sites located within the Kickamuit Reservoir Watershed Overlay District.
Yes, it is. There's a map.
Good answer. Impervious cover limits for the town specifically, and does this project comply with them?
Right, so that's a 15% impervious cover limit. This project does not comply with that. I think it said somewhere it's like 36% impervious cover. Yeah, in the records. Go ahead.
Are you familiar with the prior removal of the Kickamuit Dam?
Yes, 2 dams.
2 dams.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And how does the removal of those 2 dams change the regulatory framework and environmental conditions here?
Right. So clearly, the developer said, okay, this is not under CRMC jurisdiction. It's in DEM jurisdiction. Okay. I mean, they kind of grandfathered in or whatever that it happens there, but and then Dr. Spalding discussed all these various sea level rise scenarios, but regardless of who the jurisdiction is, it's coming. The sea level rise is coming, and when you remove those dams, you change the hydrology, and so you've got the sea level rise that's coming up into that Warren Reservoir, what was formerly the Warren Reservoir, and then you've got what's coming down to the river, and they sort of come together, and the sea level rise acts as its own dam, and so URI has been studying this. They're monitoring carefully. It's only been down a year, but they did do with PAR Engineering some models, and it shows that just in the 10-year storm, there's going to be an increase of about 2 feet. So for this area, so it is pretty much, you know, at risk.
Have you been to the project area yourself?
Yes.
Based on your observations and your experience, what are the likely impacts of the phased construction in this case on neighbors?
Well, so it is a very quaint and quiet little neighborhood, and this is a lot of development concentrated in one area. So one of the things that, you know, I wanted to make sure of and is being addressed is that the stormwater is built before the apartment buildings are built, so that you, as you go, you have treatment. However, one of the things that are required in the permit is that they're not to compact that area of where it's going to be, the stormwater treatment is going to be. So when I look at all these phases and look how tight it is, there's really no area for lay down, stockpiling, unless they do it right where the stormwater treatment units are going to be. I mean, at least for the last couple of phases. So it's just really tight. You know, it sounds like they're going to raise it. It's going to be loud. There's some issues there. You need temporaries. Yeah.
Based on your going to the site and your experience on the long-term impacts to water quality in this area from the project.
Right. So first of all, you've got they haven't met the seasonal high groundwater table limit. So that's something we should probably go talk to DEM about, maybe request some additional information from them, why they allowed this. I'm quite surprised. And so you've got that. And then now when you look at the long term, again, that's what the watershed overlay district is all about. It's about looking at the long term and does it impact the environment? You've got changes in the water tables. You've got changes in the salinities. You've got changes happening in the Warren Reservoir, and you have stormwater systems. And we're talking about 20 for the building, but the stormwater systems the bottoms are at 12, at 14. So now your stormwater is a lot of those areas that they're showing flooding, they're going to be underwater. They're going to be useless. And then you've got sewer that's at elevation 4, which actually the town should be very concerned about how deep that sewer system is and in the water table. So it probably, you know, a lot of infiltration and inflow issues. And so, you know, yeah. Well, if your pipe is inside in the groundwater table and there are leaks into it, it dilutes the wastewater, and then you have issues of trying to clean the wastewater. So now those impacts compound and head all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant. And so there are requirements of minimum infiltration and inflow that's actually allowed into a sewer system. Mhm. Well, no. So I was going to say you also have underground infiltration systems. And so now as the flooding occurs, or as you have sea level rise, and you have these other impacts, again, I think the stormwater treatment is at the highest risk because it is lowest. It is the lowest elevation in that whole development.
Okay. And based on your review, what is your opinion about whether the project meets the statutory and regulatory requirements for public health?
Well, public health, it's part of the adequate stormwater treatment is part of public health. And so that needs to be treated as well as the sanitary systems that are buried and you can be, you know, into the, that could be in the water table as well. So.
And do you have any other concerns about this project with respect to impacts to the environment?
Yeah, I mean, it's so dense. The last time I saw like guardrail between these two apartment buildings, the last time I saw something like that was a project in Onlyville. I don't know. This is it clearly tried to maximize every potential square foot possible. And in 186 parking spots. And then another time I saw something that was pretty dense was in Dowling Village, and that ended up going for a lawsuit and they lost. It was just too dense. After seeing so many of these, you just know it's like this thing is just way too dense. So you've got guardrail, retaining walls, all kinds of things. You've got Cape Cod berm, which only lasts like 5 years. It's a bituminous berm. They're planning on putting all around. You don't have anywhere to do your snow stockpiling. So these plows are just going to blow through the berm and put that snow somewhere. I don't know, because in the parking spots, I don't know, that's not allowed in this, or else it's going to go into the stormwater basins, which is where everybody else has a tendency. That would be here's an open spot, and they'll put in the stormwater. That compacts those and makes those useless. So they really haven't adequately addressed those kinds of issues. And then the snow plows, when you have this berm, it's very strangely kind of outlined with this berm. And you, like you said, one snow plow is just going to go right through it. Like at DOT, we use a lot of berm and we just use it on straightaways, and the plows kind of hit the edges of it. But if you're trying to do a parking lot and you're pushing this snow somewhere, it's all that stuff's it's just going to be a mess. Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned high water table and the fact that the filters would, as designed, would not work because of the high water table.
Correct. There needs to be a very an anaerobic and an aerobic process that happens inside those filters. So when they're soaked, when they have too much water on a regular basis, then they don't get to do the aerobic piece of it, meaning oxygen, piece of the water quality treatment. And so that's why the DEM regulations state you must have a 3-foot water separation, or separation from the top of the filter to this estimated seasonal high groundwater level. And right now, sometimes I see 2 feet, sometimes I see 1 foot. Now I have allowed variations and exemptions to that, but it was in the case of like a retrofit or redevelopment where it was, that was the only place they could do it. And we knew we were just making things better. We weren't taking an open field and turning it into a parking lot. We were taking a parking lot and trying to open up areas to treat. And so we were a little more flexible at DM.
The design of the stormwater retention ponds detention, slope of the sidewalls,
Mm-hmm.
does that conform to what your expectation would be for the needs here and ability to maintain?
Well, so, the more pavement you have, the deeper these stormwater treatment units have to go, because the more volume you have going to them. So at DOT, we like a 3-to-1 slope because you want somebody who can actually mow it and walk without falling and tripping. I didn't really look at the slopes here. I think the manual is only like a 2-to-1 requirement. So you can have somebody with a weed whacker kind of, working on that. It's going to be a little challenging to get down in the sediment forebays, and how you're going to dig those out and dig that sand out. You probably need a long arm reach bucket or something like that.
So, and the surface of the ponds, when they're not full of water,
Mm-hmm.
is it, based on what you saw on the plans, is it grass? Is it brushy vegetation? Is it specified?
They show, it's a little confusing. Actually, you bring up a good point, because the plan view says that some of them are bioretention systems. And then you look at the profile view, the side of it, they talk about sand filters. So not sure exactly what is going to happen there. We try.
Well, I
Yeah.
think there's a distinction between the house lots and the apartments. And so that may be where that's coming in. I don't know, like.
It's like
clarification.
sand filter area detail, bio 1 and bio 2. That's kind of a mixed message. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't have the stormwater management report to review. I wasn't provided that information, so I'm not exactly sure. You can put loam and seed over a sand filter.
Okay.
That's preferred than just letting the sand blow around.
Okay.
Yeah.
The retention pond that's located on Kennecott Ave,
Mm-hmm.
that's also in the floodplain. A 100-year flood, from what we just saw on the map.
It looked,
It's also on a low area
Yeah.
valley.
yeah, it looks like at the 100-year, it might have been out, but when you start to look at the sea level rise, yes, exactly. That would
No,
be
that's
another
kind of
basin that would be
essentially
inundated.
be under-
Correct, correct. And that brings up another point. And as these fill, and now you do have other health issues of mosquitoes and breeding, and that you also need, these ponds need to drain. So as the seasonal high water table is higher, there's less infiltration. They don't drain as
So over
easily.
time, this is gonna be a problem with drainage.
Yeah, yep, yep.
Anyone else? Okay,
Mm, Okay.
thank you.
I've got a question. What permits have been approved for this project?
Apparently, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental
Yeah,
Management.
they got their
had
DM freshwater.
approved this while, because they still had jurisdiction over it.
For the stormwater.
Yeah, yeah, freshwater wetlands and stormwater from E DEM.
For the stormwater for the project that's finished, not the construction for both?
It does cover both. And so I haven't seen the stormwater management plan for construction. That is another document that's required to be submitted. And I'm sure that they've submitted that, but it does say in the permit that they cannot store their materials or compact the areas where they're going to be doing stormwater treatment. So it just leaves them crowded in amongst themselves, just to figure out where to put everything. So as long as they don't, they have to mark those areas off.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Not to put Attorney Landry on the spot, but have any cross-exam questions or right? That's all we have for tonight. Thank you so much.
This might be a good time to give Cindy a short break.
Sure. 5 minutes?
Oh,
That-
5 minutes, yeah.
Is that good?
And I was also gonna suggest that we open it to the public comment again for the,
Yeah, we're
whenever
gonna
we
do
come
that.
back. So that some of the people that can't get back here next month get
Yeah.
to, get to
No
say.
problem. Okay, 5 minute break. I'd prefer you didn't get up and move around, because then it's that, walk, but do we have a list of people who are going to speak? Okay, for anyone there, say, raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and I'll have you come forward. Sir, you state your name, your address, and make a short statement. I know that some of the witnesses.
Thank you. My name is George Avila. I live at 167 Schoolhouse Road. So I got some bullet points here, some of it more of questions. So the whole water and sewer calculations, did it take into consideration the 40 units that are potentially or already approved for Penny Lane?
I don't know.
Because the sewer test and so forth said that there was close or whatever. I mean, if they added additional 40 units plus the sewer infiltration, did they take that into consideration? Again, question.
We have here tonight with us, after the public speaks, John Himlin from Woodard and Curran, who works on these matters for the town, as well. I keep forgetting the guy's name from Fuss and O'Neill. I'm sorry, myself every meeting. So we have people here that can address your questions. They'll do it at the proper time.
All right. Yeah. So again, did they take the 40 units into consideration? My biggest concern was the traffic from the other individual that came up and basically said there was not going to be an impact. It kind of blew my mind because if you look at the number of residents from those main streets, the Kinnicut, Buffalo, and Denver, you add those up and you look at the apartment, there's going to be more cars from the apartment than anything else. So of course, there's going to be traffic impact. The next thing is, now there was a newer traffic report obtained recently, right? When was it done?
The one that we've seen was the one that was the 1 day study done in February.
Yeah, so the one done in February, was it during school or school is in, school is out?
And then there was a second one that came out July 23rd.
So July 23rd, school is out. So how can you do a traffic study when there's no school?
Well, the July 23rd was the date of the letter to us.
Yeah. So I'd love to see that traffic study because let's put it this way. Where's all the traffic going to go from that development? It's not going to go up to Charles Street because school's on, people going to work. People coming out of Twisted actually shoot out Long Lane and then Schoolhouse because they avoid Charles Street. You got the school going there, you got two schools, traffic is a mess. What do? They shoot down Schoolhouse or those other side streets. So of course that's going to increase the traffic. So then you're going to get Kinnicut and Schoolhouse is going to be impacted, Buffalo, Denver, Bushy, Serpentine, Child Market, all of those are going to be increased significantly by the additional traffic. So then do kids walk to school? Yes, they do from that area, right? To the middle school? Yes. Okay. So there's sidewalks on Charles Street. Are there any sidewalks on Kinnicut?
No.
No. Okay. So if you look at all the schools, usually there's sidewalks. So are they going to put sidewalks on Kinnicut? I don't think so. So there's the study was done during the winter. I mean, how many people did they actually count walking during the winter? This is the winter. Schoolhouse is very busy with bicyclists. There are people walking. Then you have that whole intersection right there at Schoolhouse and Kinnicut, and you get that the bridge, right? So that bridge, the wonderful bridge that they put in, right? It doesn't even meet DOT standards. DOT says that the width of the lane is supposed to be 11 feet, right? I checked the website, and that's what it states, 11 feet. And it is 11 feet approaching that area. You got that bottleneck, all right? You know how wide the lanes are on that bridge? 9 feet. It was out there with the measuring tape, 9 feet and ducking traffic. That's the other thing. People walk there. There's also the new garden, right? So you got more traffic now going to the garden. You can't walk across that bridge when there's traffic. Never mind, the trash trucks go by there, the school trucks, especially in the morning. I can only imagine to a school bus and trash truck going through there. Even farm equipment have a hard time going through there. It's very narrow. You're going to have a bottleneck, and of course, everything is going to go in there. Of course, there's an impact over there. I mentioned bicyclists like to go through there as well. I live on Schoolhouse, so I see all the traffic. There was also the traffic information about how many accidents and so forth. So I didn't see that, but I know that we've had multiple strikes of deer, and you got the coyotes, you got the foxes, it's a country road. It's not made for that kind of buildup. So you get a lot of wildlife. So you're going to see the strikes going up exponentially. So you got the wildlife. So I wonder how many they actually spotted. Where did they do this traffic count? Did they actually have somebody at Schoolhouse in Kinnicut? Did they have somebody at Denver? Did they have somebody up at Child? I don't know. Be interesting to see. Cars. I have usually there's a police officer on Hezekiah and Schoolhouse because the cars just buzz right through there. So I'm not exactly sure how many tickets have been going out, but just think how much more. And if you think about it, a lot of the people live there. There's it's part of the community. When you have all of these apartments, as somebody else mentioned, sir, they don't have a stake in the area. It's going to be an apartment, in and out. Tickets. Oh, by the way, what's the speed limit on Schoolhouse Road?
25.
25.
No, there's a section that's actually 15. Yeah, there's a section that's actually 15. Do they take that into their calculations? I'd love to see the.
And it's 15 going over the bridge.
Yeah. So I'd love to see the traffic study of the computer model that they used to simulate the actual traffic flow, because that's really what you should be using is a computer model that shows that additional inflow of traffic. Can't walk, trash. Okay, so sorry, I'm trying to go quick. All right, so I mentioned that. Accidents, okay. So that's my thing on traffic, but one other quick topic is taxes. So I pay over $6,000 a year, no, actually $7,000 a year in taxes. How much is that new development, the apartments? How much is that going to bring to the town in taxes? Do we know?
Well, I do. I don't have an exact figure. But at least the affordable portion will be at 8% of the gross rental for those units.
Okay. So I'm not exactly sure what that equates to, but does
Neither am I, and no, the tax assessor hasn't had the ability now to actually assess the property.
Okay. So there's a cost benefit here. Are we going to be underwater by this development? Because at what point do we need to add more police officers? Is it based on the number of homes, or is it based on the number of people in the town? So are we going to have to add another police officer to the beat because of the additional people in town? So that's going to be a cost. Trash collection. Is the town picking up the trash? Because that's a big expense right there.
The answer to the question would be yes.
Well, I'm sorry. We can get the answer from the developer. I believe, if I understand it, the apartments is not town pickup, but the house is made.
If I'm mistaken, I'd just like the confirmation on that, so we have it on the record. Mr. Landry.
Apartments are private. Single family.
Trash pickup on trash pickup on the single family dwellings, no trash pickup for the apartments. Okay,
So, talk about those spots that they were talking about for parking and so forth. Where are these big, I mean, these are two big buildings. Where are they gonna put the dumpsters? How many dumpsters are gonna be there and where are they gonna be located? Because that's gonna occupy some of those
Yeah.
parking area, as well, right? So,
Okay, I'm gonna have to,
I'm almost done.
Wow.
But I think I'm bringing up some good points here.
I know, there are other
so,
people who want to speak.
And there's also the additional, because of the taxes, the property value. So in closing, I saw a letter in the Warren Times regarding the developer and stating, he's a good person and so forth. But he's one person. He's not part of this community. We are, and the impact to our community is going to be significant. He'll reap the benefits. My property values are going to go down. So we got to look at, again, cost benefit here. It's in safety, because I think safety wise, that whole development is a major concern, especially for anybody that walks in the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stephen Clark. I'm a resident of Warren, live at Point Farm at on the Kickamuit River. For more than 30 years, I've been a member of the Save the Bays Program and Policy Committee and participated in the creation of various policy papers and positions of Save the Bay. I've also been for over 40 years a board member of the Island Foundation and have been involved in grant making to not-for-profits in habitat restoration, environmental conservation, and other issues. My comment today is regard to habitat loss. The site is currently home to many species of deer, coyotes, fisher cats, rodents, and particularly bald eagles. Eagles are not only cool, but they are protected by the Bald Eagle and Golden Eagle Protection Act, 16 U.C. 668-668D, passed in 1940. This act provides criminal penalties for persons who take, possess, sell, purchase, barter, offer for sale, or barter, or transport, or export, or import at any time any bald or golden eagle, alive or dead, in any part, nest, egg thereof. Is that clear? Don't mess with the eagles. The act also defines take as to pursue, shoot at, poison, wound, kill, capture, trap, molest, disturb, or disturb. Regulations further define disturb as to agitate or bother a bald or golden eagle to the degree that cause it or is likely to cause, based on the best scientific information available, injury to the eagle, to decrease in productivity by substantially interfering with its normal breeding, feeding, sheltering behavior, and or nest abandonment by doing the same. In addition to these immediate impacts, this definition also covers effects from human-induced alterations to their habitat around a previously used eagle nest site during a time when the eagles are not present. If on return, such alterations agitate or bother an eagle to the degree that it interferes or disrupts normal breeding, blah, 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 and or causes nest abandonment, that violates the act. A violation of this act is a $100,000 fine, $200,000 if by an organization, and 1 year imprisonment for the first offense. Fines are higher and the penalties are worse the more you do it. This is not some endangered beetle or a snail darter. This is our bloody national bird symbol. It has significant long-standing legal protections. In 2007, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service published the National Bald Eagle Management Guidelines, which delineates the activities and proximities to bald eagle nests. Many of the proposed phases of this project
either conflict with these guidelines or require their timing of them for periods when either the eagles are not present. But as stated above, if the eagles abandon their nests at any time after construction has begun, the developer may be found in violation of the act. It is not clear to me if this project proceeds, whether the developer alone is liable for these fines, or whether the town of Warren would be liable as well if they permit this activity. Thank you very much.
Is there Mr. Clark, is there a bald eagle nest there?
Yes, there are bald eagles nesting on the Kickapoo River,
But on this,
adjacent to this property.
okay.
Documented?
What?
Documented?
Documented, yes. We have photographs of the nest, multiple sightings. I was not able to get the Audubon Society to make a sighting right now, and I was not been able to reach out to the U.S. and Fish and Wildlife study in time. We apparently have to go to New Hampshire to get a fish and wildlife biologist to advise us in Rhode Island.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Kim Clark. I live at Point Farm in Warren and have done since 1985. We have raised our 3 children right on the Kickapoo River.
Can you pull the microphone down just a little?
And it's very important to us. The upper Kickapoo River is home to countless mammals and birds. And the project that is under consideration could not be done without violating those, the act. Oh, thank you. That my husband has just described. The developer has stated that this project would be built in phases over many years. How long would residents be subjected to ongoing safety and environmental issues such as dust, noise, large trucks, blasting, displacement of wildlife, impact on the roads, and more? Would the developer post bonds to cover any potential damage from these? The developer must be held liable for any such violations through this construction and after. Another question, why has the planning board not required an environmental impact statement? With removal of the dam, the upper Kickapoo is no longer a reservoir, but a tidal saltwater estuary subject to the storm flooding and sea level rise that Dr. Spalding spoke of. If a development were approved in such a vulnerable location, much harm could come to residents and the environment, and who would be financially liable? And another question, the upper Kickapoo River is an area of precious natural and cultural resources, including exotic wildlife species and significant Native American sites. These are unique features of our town and are safeguarded by policies in Warren's comprehensive plan. Why has the planning board not brought this up? That I would like to know.
Just a quick comment, no, it's to the group at large. This is a public hearing. We hear from the applicant and then we hear from the public. We haven't said anything, and yet we've been accused of capitulating to the developer. We've been accused of not holding an appropriate public meeting. We're not the enemy here. Neither is the applicant. This is a process we're going through. But I can tell you that, insulting the planning board or, acting as though the planning board has somehow not done its job does not endear you to this quasi-judicial group of people who have put a tremendous amount of time into this. I mean, this is consuming us. A number of folks I've seen have not looked at all of the material. It is voluminous. And it's important to think of this process as one where we want to get all of the information in so that then we can respond. We have not capitulated. The news of our demise is greatly exaggerated. So, moving forward, think of us as a group that is weighing very carefully the many different opinions and points of view and facts that are being delivered. So just, I'd ask you to keep that in mind. Sorry, you had something? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jenna Costa. I live at 69 Schoolhouse Road. I had pages written and George basically stole all of my words, but I just wanted to get out there what I had left. Like he said, our taxes are already high in the area. It's going to be, well, what I think would be putting even more of a strain on the taxpayers and making things less affordable for us, even though it's supposed to be an affordable project. I had read the article on WPRI that mentioned the 8 law with the 8%. So that is also something that people should probably look into. We as citizens have to abide by zoning laws. When we make our house where we make it, we do our due diligence. We look around, we see what could be built near us. We see, we have to abide by all the regulations, the rules, and it feels unfair that they can turn around and allow buildings that so blatantly don't fit the area to take up some of the only raw farmland left in the area. In the last meeting, it was mentioned by the other party that they don't anticipate many children or strain on the schools because there were a lot of 1-bedroom units. As someone who grew up in this area and is of the generation that is currently raising children, I know many parents in the area that have school-age children that live in 1-bedroom apartments. And I also know that you can't pick and choose if families can or can't live in a 1-bedroom due to fair housing laws. So I don't know that that was necessarily a fair assumption. With regards to the trees, I know they want to decrease the amount of trees, and obviously due to the buildings and the parking, there will be a huge decrease in overall vegetation. We already lost a huge amount of vegetation and trees too when the solar farm on Schoolhouse was put in. And myself and other surrounding neighbors can attest that the runoff from the lack of vegetation there has negatively affected us already. Whatever happens with this project, I don't think skimping on trees and vegetation is the right way to go. Another thing I'm concerned about is the noise and the light pollution. We can already see and hear pretty much everything that goes on in the town from where we are. So I think after the whole bridge project, the road resurfacing, the solar project, I think we've kind of had it with the noise going on constantly with construction. In terms of traffic, I know we have touched on this enough, but there is a lot of drinking and driving on my road, as well as pollution in the area. I have collected over 2,500 nip bottles just from the streets in this neighborhood. The litter into our water and land and the drunk driving is disgusting. Not to mention it's dangerous to try to pick up trash due to the speeding vehicles. As George said, there is a huge amount of young children, pets, animals, bikers, pedestrians in the area. There are areas where the vegetation, the ditches, telephone poles, the bridge, it makes it hard. If a car's not paying attention and you're walking down the road, it makes it dangerous. You can't just jump out of the way because the car's not looking at you. Especially with the Schoolhouse bridge now narrower. We often get tire marks across our property from people driving off the road, and there have been multiple accidents near our house, one immediately in front of it. And I have a neighbor who is outside a lot and hears cars hitting the guardrails regularly due to the bridge width. People often cross over onto the opposite side of the road to oncoming traffic. So I think it's dangerous. It's not safe to have your kids out playing in the yard because who knows what the cars are going to do. I understand that the owners of the property are doing what they do to make themselves a living, and I understand there's a lot of just failure in the laws to take neighbors into consideration with this. But I just want to say to please do your best to look out for us citizens. I have a wonderful group of neighbors, and they deserve to have their opinions taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Before you speak, sir, we did receive a number of letters from people who are not yet, who aren't here. They are part of the record. The planning board has read them, but I'm not stopping you. I just wanted you to know that there has been testimony provided in letters, but we welcome in person, as well. Go ahead.
My name is Chuck Thibodeau. I live at 13 Denver Avenue.
Oh, sir, 1 second.
Chuck Thibodeau.
Thibodeau Jr. Chuck. I live right at the top of the hill. Before that, right at the top of the hill, and then it goes down. When they put sewers in that area, they blasted. They closed my well up. They cracked ceilings. They cracked walls. So I went uptown. I said, "What are we going to do about this?" The person that did the store down the street had a bond. So they said, just get a bill, and they submit it and they paid for everything. Now, my question is, are they going to do blasting on that street? Across the street from me is completely all ledge. And as soon as they touch that, that goes under my house. There's a lot of ledge on it. I don't know if anybody understands that. There's a lot of ledge there. So, and Denver Avenue is all wells. So they're going to close up wells.
Are all of the houses along Denver well serviced?
There is 11 houses on Denver, and I believe there's nine houses with just wells.
Okay.
When you
What's
go,
the depth of the well?
my well is, I think, 220.
Okay.
They had to go down deeper, and I think it goes down about maybe 10 or 15 feet, and then you hit ledge. It's all ledge. In the front, when they put the sewer in, they went down 28 feet in front of that house. So they were blasting. And I've been there 50 years. So I know what goes on in that area. And where they're going to put that road around the back, that goes right around well, that's all ledge. I don't know how they're going to come out there.
Excuse me, by ledge, you mean bedrock?
Well, they call it ledge or bedrock.
That's better.
Basically the same. And they're going to go around there. And plus Denver Avenue is very, very small, narrow. And when the rescue goes down there, they have to figure out how to get out. They back down or they drive down, back out. It's a narrow street, and you put snowbanks there. So we'll have a tough time with that. Okay, I'll give somebody else a chance to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to state some of my concerns about this project. My name is Nicole Mello. I live at 30 Kinnicut Avenue. My family, my husband and 2 children and I are direct abutters to this project. And in some cases, I feel as though we will be also most impacted, especially when it comes into concern with the retention basins that they have. One of the retention basins that is closest to Kinnicut, it almost, I'm not sure if I'm interpreting the drawings correctly, but it almost looks like it's a bowl. And we're talking about snow falling, possibly these things flooding. Our property is a little bit lower than this property, which means that water will come directly into our property. Regarding the storm surge and flooding, our property in the back actually has a FEMA flood zone. And I can attest that flooding is real. My kids basically about 3/4 of the year are playing in a pond in our backyard that really shouldn't exist there, but it's due to flooding. I have submitted to the planning board in May videos of our house with stormwater rushing through. And I have many more videos that I could present to the town like that as well. So stormwater is already an issue for our property. Our sump pump is constantly running, and the water and the impervious material that will be placed is of great concern to the residents surrounding this property. Thank you. I also had conducted a petition of the surrounding neighbors who are direct abutters to the property. In every single house that abuts except two, I was able to have the residents sign. The two, one is in a nursing home now, the other one, the house is vacant. So that is the only reason why there are two minus the abutters. Every single person that I had sign immediately was against this proposal. However, most of them said they could handle what the property is zoned for the 25 houses, for the R10s and the R40s. That makes more sense. That is what is representative of the neighborhood. And I also want to mention, just a point of information, I have read the court case, the one after Shab, where Mr. Landry speaks of the R10s. The last meeting, the R10 information was presented. And it makes it sound as if that neighborhood is all R10. He said it was very similar in nature to Kikamuit Village, which is at least a half a mile from the property. Fails to mention in both cases, the meeting as well as the court case, the R40s. Fails to mention that Frerish Farm abuts the property. So it misskews the information where it looks like it's R10, but there's a whole lot of property that's R40 that really matches the neighborhood and the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ed Martell, 23 Reservoir Avenue. It's a side street off of Child Street. And Mr. Avila spoke many of the things I was going to speak to, but you have to live in the neighborhoods there to understand the traffic. They did a one-day traffic study in February. I believe it was February 4th. The kids were probably in school. You don't want to go on Child Street when the middle school and the Hugh Cole School empty out. It's going to take you a long time with 20 buses coming out of that side street. They should have timed how long it takes to get through Child and Medicom. Sometimes you sit there for 3 changes of the lights because they're backed up so far. I've lived in Warren all my life, all 83 years. And to my recollection, there is no residential building higher than 3 stories. Now we're going to have this 4-story monstrosity that you're going to probably see from all over town. Why does it have to be 4 stories? More money. I'd like to mention the sewer too. At the last meeting, they said they did a flow study and the flow was 30%. When was that study done? Was it all day long? Because I can't believe it was 30%. Because when this project was started or proposed, there was a big concern that the flow would not be handled on Medicom Avenue. So I don't believe it's 30%. Maybe if they took the flow study between 2 and 4 in the morning, it's 30%. Or cherry pick what time frame. And I'm sure that's been done in many cases. And that's about it. Mr. Avila kind of did it all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alfred Betancourt Jr. I grew up on the farm. I grew up in the farmhouse. My father and I farmed that farm for approximately 50 years. And I just want to point out, if I know you probably know this already, but adjacent to that farm is land that is owned by the waterworks. It can't be developed. Adjacent to that land is the Furish Farm. That can't be developed. Across the river is the Lyle Farm. That can't be developed. You've got Green Acres around the corner. That can't be developed. Why on God's green earth do you want to develop this farm? My father wanted the family, which was 13 brothers and sisters. He wanted to sell the development rights back in the 1980s, but the rest of the family wouldn't agree with him. So unfortunately, the farm went to the 13 families back in 2009, or 2007, when my father passed away. It went back to the family, and, the 13 families decided, well, we're going to sell it. Wish they hadn't, but they did. I think you need to do everything you possibly can to keep this a farm. And I would like to point out, I found it very interesting when the person was talking about the wetlands. Whenever we had a major rainstorm, there was a section of that farm we couldn't drive a tractor on. And that section of the farm was where they want to put that apartment building. So it's very wet. I don't know how you can develop it, but thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a fellow there in the back. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Irvin Dominguez. I live on 35 Kinnicott. Just have a small statement. So while my wife, Julia, couldn't be here this evening, I'm speaking on behalf of both of us. We chose to make Warren our first home because of what makes this town so special: the peace, the community, and the connection to nature. Julia grew up on a farm, and we found this quiet neighborhood surrounded by trees and open sky, and it felt like coming home. We now raise golden retrievers here under our small business, Ocean State Goldens. It's a labor of love and one that fits naturally into a rural setting like ours. But we're here tonight because we have deep concerns about the proposed housing development that would border our property. So regarding our golden retrievers, puppies and dogs are incredibly sensitive to their surroundings. Construction noise, constant hammering, drilling, heavy machinery is more than just a nuisance. It can cause real distress, anxiety, restlessness, and long-term behavioral problems, especially in young dogs. If the development leads to increased complaints about noise, it could impact our ability to continue our business, one that's been built with care and integrity. We chose Warren because we want this to be our forever home. We're not trying to stand in the way of progress. We're just asking that we think carefully about what kind of progress we want and who we want it to serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
it's now a little after 9.
Yeah. Paul, did you want to?
I have one more witness, not here tonight, so.
Oh, okay.
I
Well-
wouldn't want to say any more tonight.
Okay.
He's Richard Pastor, professional engineer. And then we didn't hear from the two sewer experts. So I had to.
Engineers, please.
Yeah, continuing public, so we can hear more experts.
Yeah, but Mr. Himlin's not gonna be brief. I think he has a lot to say, so I don't think it's a good idea to have him go right here now.
Right. Well, again, we'll continue the public hearing
Correct.
until the next scheduled meeting. Again, I thank you for coming out, for presenting this information. There will be yet another meeting. Expert testimony is kind of interesting. There are experts, and that weighs heavily, obviously, with us. but also individuals have something to say, and their experience is an important element in these planning board meetings. If you've seen things, if you, for example, there was a proposal to build houses, not far away from where Mr. Clark and his wife live. And that is a habitat, that is a nursery for creatures. How do I know? I'm out there, I see them on my kayak or the sailboat. And that is part of the record. So your experience in this community has weight in terms of what you're saying about this and whatever you can prove. This fellow's comment about Child Street, I run into it every day. There's a lot of traffic on Child Street, even without the schools. And I sat through 3 lights on the way here today. So that kind of information is important overall to this body and to its deliberations. Thanks.
We need a motion.
Yeah, motion to,
I make a motion to continue the hearing till our next meeting.
second Tim White, all in
Hey,
favor?
before you say that, can you give the date and the time? So that the public knows when to be here.
To September 22nd at 6:30 PM.
Thank you.
Great. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Can sit here.